It's time for the game segment. Are you ready?
I don't know. Let's see.
We'll find out. The game is very creatively titled BYOI. Bring your own itinerary. Spent an entire week coming up with that name. Let's assume that I'm visiting New York for the first time. I've never been before. In fact, I'm going to give myself a character as well. I'm Chad. I'm in my late 20s. Money's not an issue for me.
Amazing.
But I'm not a billionaire either. But I've been looking forward to this one trip and I'm happy to splurge because it's going to be my New York experience. I watched this video on the Megan Daily channel, which said that the duration of my trip should be 5 days, 4 nights, the magic number. I've got the duration ready. Now I'm looking to hire you as my consultant for planning my itinerary out. I've got some categories of things that I want to do, and I would love to hear your recommendations of things that I should do and why for each. I'm looking at my calendar for the entire year. I'm trying to decide what's the best season to visit New York in. And the answer is?
I think this is going to be an unsatisfying answer because in that same video, I talk about how it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Because I love summertime. I think summertime is amazing. I love the heat. Other people hate the heat. Some people really want Christmas. Christmas is so magical. It's really, really magical. However, that being said, you want me to decide for you. Most people would say that like right now, late August, early September is the best time. And the reason for this is the weather tends to be fabulous. It's still warm, but it's not sweltering hot. You get a little bit of that breeze, the fall breeze coming through, and you still have the free events from the summer happening. So still got the free events in Times Square. Shakespeare in the Park, I believe, is currently doing The Tempest. So you have those free outdoor activities, but you're going to have less crowds, especially as we get into September.
So we've decided on a season. I'm now looking for a hotel room. Which is the neighborhood that I should look for a hotel room in? I'm visiting New York for the first time.
The neighborhood that you should look for a hotel room in. I am personally of the belief that you should look in and around Times Square. The reason for this is because especially if you have 5 days, right? You're not going to spend the whole time in one neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be able to walk places. You're going to be able to catch subways that are going to take you any place that you want to go. And if you do choose to take a cab, you're also minimizing the cost of that cab that you are taking.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be spending, I don't know if Chad is a solo traveler, but is Chad a solo traveler?
I am.
Okay. There are some people who travel with families who might need to spend more time in a room.
Yeah.
But as a solo traveler, my thought is you're not going to be spending a lot of time in your hotel room. You're going to be out. You're going to be about. If you do go to the hotel room, it just is to drop something off. Maybe you need to change your shoes. Maybe you want to get dressed up to go to a Broadway show, but you're not going to be there for hours and hours luxuriating. So I think if you easily have the money to spend on a room at like the Plaza or one of the big fancy hotels, go for it. But my personal recommendation is to go for location first. That way you can easily get wherever you need. If you want to drop something off, it's a convenient, centralized location in Times Square.
That's great advice. Hopefully a lot of people who try to stay in like Brooklyn or Queens and then travel every day and they lose like a few hours will change their minds after they listen to this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I had this conversation with my mom who mentioned the last time we went to, well, not the last time we went to Paris. I go to Paris a lot. My best friend lives there. But the first time we went to Paris, we all had to stay in one room. And I was 10, my brother was 8. So we were very young and the rooms were too small in the heart of Paris. So we ended up staying in La Défense, which is a bit further out. She kind of put me in my place and was like, if they're traveling with kids, it might actually be cheaper for them to stay in a bigger room out in Brooklyn or Queens than in the middle of Times Square. That being said, all things being equal, really think you want to try to be in Times Square. And if you're traveling with kids, the other argument is they might need to take a nap. They might need to change their shoes. And if you're not spending an hour commuting out to your hotel and then an hour commuting back, you're in my opinion, making the most out of your time.
I agree. Yeah. definitely always a great way to, well, not only is it more convenient, but staying at the center of the city is always the best options. Perfect. Great advice. I watched another video on the Megan Daily channel that gave me this nugget of wisdom that on your first day in any city, you have to take a tour.
Yes.
Why should I take a tour on my first day, and what type of tour should I take?
You need to take a tour your first day. I'm such a believer in this, and I do this whenever I travel. First of all, your tour guide's going to be your first friend in the new city. So you get a friend in the new city. They're going to teach you like the ways of the land. For example, when I went to Italy very recently, they taught us about these things called nasone, which is how, if you're in Italy, you can get free, fresh, cool water. They just have these like water fountains. Apparently they look like a big nose. I have a big nose. And you get this fresh, clean, cool water. So if you're coming from another country, if you're coming from another state, you're going to learn in New York City certain words and phrases that are going to help you get around. You're going to learn, how to navigate the city, how to navigate the subway system, about all of the neighborhoods in New York City. I just feel like it's going to help you get your best local experience. I'm putting local in quotation marks because you are, again, trying to fit 10 years of experience into 5 days in this case. But you're going to get the local advice for the lay of the land and how to interact with people, how to interact with traffic, how to interact with buildings, how to interact with the weather with a tour guide. They're also, depending on the tour that you take, and I kind of am of the belief it doesn't matter what the tour you take is. One of the things that I specialize in is I hop onto buses for large group travel, and I give them a 4-hour private bus tour of Manhattan. And I love that because we really go through all the neighborhoods in Manhattan. You can see how they change. You can learn a little bit about the neighborhoods. We hop off in certain neighborhoods. And this gives you a great idea of, this is a neighborhood that I want to go back to.
Yeah.
It also lets you get all of the postcard items out of the way. So if you want to spend the rest of the time just sitting in a cafe in Greenwich Village, you can. If you can afford to take one of those, I recommend those. I know there's double-decker bus tours that also offer that. I personally am not like the biggest fan of the double-decker bus tours, especially the ones that don't have live guides. You want a live guide.
So much hate mail that's going to come through. I'm going to forward it to you.
I know.
Forward all the hate mail.
I know. Here's the thing. And I feel like I'm talking so much about this.
Famiglia Pizza is going to email first.
I loved it.
It's on record now.
The thing with the tours is I want to say you do need a live guide.
Yeah.
A lot of the double-decker buses don't have live guides. Big Bus has an evening loop, which has a live guide. So if you're going to do a double-decker bus tour, I recommend the Big Bus evening tour that has the live guide because you want that live guide to be your friend. You can ask them questions. You can ask them for personal recommendations. The good thing about the double-decker bus tours is you do get that like big lay of the land at a largely reduced price.
Yeah.
Like I would be quite expensive for that tour. That being said, if you just do like a walking tour of a neighborhood, you're going to get a lot of the same information. So if you do a walking tour of Greenwich Village, if you do a walking tour of Lower Manhattan, if you do a bike tour, if you do a boat tour, Circle Line offers a lot of good boat tours where you're going to see everything. They all have live guides. I'm just a fan of make sure that this tour has a live guide.
I completely agree. And you started this by talking about like the water fountains in Italy. And in one of your videos, I watched you like use this hack of like, if you put your thumb the right way, like it becomes like it sprouts like a water fountain that you can actually drink out of. And I was like, only a tour guide can tell you all that. No Wikipedia page is ever going to be dedicated to this. So completely get a point. For that and more, definitely take a tour on your first day. Okay. I've taken my first tour. It's time to get hungry. So I'm looking for food recommendations. And the first thing I want to try is a New York pizza. Where do I go? Controversial. Okay. This is going to be very,
this isn't, I mean, I feel like Scott Wiener is going to like apparate. I will say when it comes to taking tours, I recommend Scott's Pizza tours all the time.
Yeah.
And in terms of like that first tour to take on a first day, Scott's Pizza tours gets the job done. I've taken his tours. They're amazing as a tour guide. All of his tour guides are top notch. So big fan, super plug of him. And I always defer to him when it comes to pizza. However, in this case, you're asking for my opinion. So
Scott's watching.
the first, he probably is. The first thing you need to know is what makes traditional New York City pizza traditional New York City pizza.
Yeah.
And that is pizza that's made in a coal burning oven. You can get any type of pizza that you want in New York City. But if you're looking for pizza that's made in a coal burning oven in Manhattan currently, I recommend that you go to John's of Bleecker Street. Yep. John, does Scott recommend that one too?
He actually went down this whole, I don't want to like interrupt them, but he went down this whole rabbit hole of depends on the style you're going for and the era that you're going for. There's the new style, the old style, and the current style. And you can get something for everything. But let's hear your answers, then we'll talk about Scott.
Well, I will say that's something I've also noticed with, like, for me when I travel, right? It's so interesting because as a tour guide, my recent trip to Italy taught me a lot about the travel experience. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. You tell me what I want. I came to Rome. I want to eat pizza. You tell me what the delicious pizza is. Don't tell me there's a thick crust. Don't tell me there's a thin crust. Just I get one pizza meal. I get one pizza meal. Tell me what kind of pizza I want.
Yeah.
In that case, I feel like a lot of my guests, they're here for just a few days and they're like, we want that traditional New York City style pizza. And what they're thinking of is the pizza made in a coal burning oven. So I send them to John's of Bleecker. It's also a nice sit down restaurant. So you can sit down, share a pie, 2 pies with your whole family.
Mm-hmm.
However, other people in their minds, they're really thinking of that greasy slice, in which case I send them to Joe's Pizza.
The Spider-Man one. Okay.
Yes.
So between Joe's Pizza and John's of Bleecker, I've got my pizza sorted. What if I was looking for a New York bagel?
Bagels are harder. Me and my tour guide colleagues, we often just say whatever bagel's closest to you is going to be the best because it's the freshest. But I do find that people really like a specific name. I really love Essa Bagel.
Mm-hmm.
Essa Bagel's fabulous. I really love Zucker's Bagels. And then I really love Russ and Daughters.
3 good ones to try. Cheesecake.
So again, people really want a name. I almost always recommend Junior's first.
Yeah.
Junior's, you're going to be like, this is the touristiest place ever. But the cheesecake is phenomenal. I believe it dates back to 1929 and they've elaborated on the recipe. I know of 0 people who have ever been disappointed in Junior's. Again, you can sit down and eat it there, or you can take it to your hotel, or you can buy 20 slices, stick it in a suitcase, and bring it home. The other cheesecake that I often recommend is Eileen's Cheesecake. Eileen makes these like little tiny circle cheesecakes. I recommend that you go with friends and get all the flavors or like 10 flavors. I was really surprised because I'm a chocolate girl and their mango cheesecake was my favorite. So that's why I say like go with people, get a lot of different cheesecakes and taste those cheesecakes. And then I'm going to throw a third one in. This one's like a loop, right? Junior's is the traditional New York City style, just giant slices of cheesecake. Eileen's little round cheesecakes, but still like traditional American cheesecake. Yeah. Then there's Keki's famous cakes in Chinatown. She makes a bouncy cheesecake. I will eat an entire cheesecake in one sitting. It is so good. She does not sell slices. I can talk. I'm so excited about Keki's. I can't even talk. She doesn't sell slices. She only sells like whole cakes, but you will eat the whole cake. It's so light and bouncy and fluffy.
So the central theme is, as Chad, I need to start loving humans again and make some friends so I can actually share and like try out everything because there's so much food. What if I want to try out a classic New York hot dog? Hot
dogs. Feltman's hot dogs are the original hot dogs. It is not Nathan's. There was a man, I believe it was Charles Feltman. Charles Feltman opened up a hot dog place. It was actually a whole restaurant called Feltman's. He was technically the first person to serve sausage on a roll out in Coney Island. He had a worker there named Nathan Handwerker. Nathan Handwerker eventually went rogue, opened up a place across the street, undersold Feltman's. That's how Famous Nathan's came to be. Yeah. Now, I do like Famous Nathan's hot dogs, but Feltman's hot dogs are like out of this world, especially as prepared at McSorley's Pub. So you want to go to McSorley's Pub. Harry Houdini used to go to McSorley's Pub. It's really, really delicious. They serve just like half pints. I think it's just half pints of beer. So I like to go to McSorley's Pub and get myself traditional Feltman's hot dogs.
Fantastic. All these people who go rogue from Lombardi to Patsy to Giuliana and then Grimaldi's. So many stories of food, like of people who've gone rogue and they've created up these branches. Lively.
My biggest thing with Lombardi's at the moment is that they don't have their coal burning oven anymore.
Yeah, they move, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, they moved, but then during the pandemic, they had to downsize and they ended up selling the half of their building that had the coal burning oven.
Yeah.
So now they just have a normal oven. Now, to their credit, I couldn't taste the difference. I didn't know. But now I'm like, okay, you want the coal burning oven for me if you come to New York City.
And final, any unique dining experience? Maybe it could be luxury dining as well, but any one restaurant that you think is unique to New York?
It's funny because I grew up in a neighborhood that didn't have any Asian food at all. So the fact that we have like Korean hot pots is so exciting to me. And I feel like it would be really exciting to a lot of people coming to New York City, especially if they're traveling from a place like where I grew up in Florida, to be able to try all of these different Asian cuisines that they wouldn't have access to. So I really like almost every place in Chinatown. Getting soup dumplings, those, for anyone who doesn't know, because I did not know what soup dumplings were growing up. They are dumplings that have the soup in the dumpling. Yeah. They are not dumplings in soup, which surprises a lot of my guests as well. For people who live in New York, we're like, we have soup dumplings at least once a week. But it's like a lot of people don't have access to this type of food. So I recommend getting something such as soup dumplings or Korean hot pots. Also, I live up in Harlem. We have a lot of really good food in Harlem. Red Rooster, they have a jazz brunch, I believe, which is really cool. Marcus Samuelson has a really interesting story. He's the man that is the founder of Red Rooster. I feel like he really kind of embodies what Harlem is, which is a mix of a bunch of different cultures. Charles Pan Fried Chicken. My fiance wept the first time he ate this fried chicken because it was so delicious. Wow. It's not like a sit-down restaurant, but it's so good. I really like that as a restaurant. And food trucks, you have to eat at our food trucks.
Let's hear one.
Now, the thing about the food trucks is it's so expensive to open up a brick and mortar restaurant in New York City that a lot of times these classically trained chefs will open up a food truck first because it's more affordable, and they drive around to different neighborhoods, see where their food is the most popular, and then they'll end up opening a brick and mortar restaurant if the idea is really good. So one of the big famous examples is Halal Guys. Yeah. But I will also say that I gave a food truck tour to a health and hygiene inspector of a very well-known company. I will not name the name of the company, but very, very well-known company. And he was freaking out because he was like, food trucks are going to be unhygienic. Oh no. He inspected every food cart himself and he could not find a single thing wrong with any of the food carts. So I'm a big fan of the food carts. And it's how New Yorkers eat. We're like running. We're on the go. Yeah. We're like shoving food in our face.
No time. Yeah. Busy. Yeah, I get it.
So I feel like that's a New York City experience. And one of the things I say, I have a video called 16 Things You Must Do in New York City. So I say you must eat at our food carts and you must eat at one of our baller restaurants. That's, of course, cost prohibitive. Something like per se is $350 per person. Yeah. But you get this like 16 course meal. It's basically like seeing a Broadway show, except for the food is the show.
I'm hoping someone one day buy me a meal at 11 Madison Park. Is that the one? Yeah.
I really want to go to 11 Madison Park.
I can't afford it.
I really want to go there too. Yeah. I've only been to Per Se. That's been my only baller meal, but I still talk about it. It was so good.
So worth it.
And it was like 16 courses, but it wasn't. It was like 50 courses. Dessert was one course and it was like 20 courses in and of itself. And they gave me like a box of truffles to take home. It was amazing. Like it's expensive. And I recognize that a lot of people do not have Like it's something that I would have to save up for massively. If I was traveling and I was going to eat at one of these 3 Michelin star restaurants, I'd be like, okay, we're taking my tour tip money. This is my Michelin star jar.
Yeah.
But it was such a memorable experience that I would say it's worth saving up for if that's in your scope.
I'm going to start the piggy bank today.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a lot of food options, a lot of fantastic options. What if I want to go to one observation deck? Which one do you recommend?
This one. I'm an observation deck nut. I'm an observation deck nut. I'll go real fast through all of them because again, I would probably ask what your motivation is, but Empire State Building, that's the OG. If you want to reenact the famous movies, famous television shows, if you want to pretend that you're in King Kong's palm,
Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, Sleepless in Seattle, Gossip Girl, all of those. Elf has scenes in the Empire State Building. You want to go to the Empire State Building. That's the OG.
Mm-hmm.
I also recommend that you get the expensive skip the line pass because it will change your entire experience at Empire State Building. Top of the Rock. Many people love Top of the Rock because they say it gets the best view of the Empire State Building. You're like facing the Empire State Building face to face. So if you want to get that famous photo of the Empire State Building, you want to go to Top of the Rock. Top of the Rock is also at Rockefeller Center. So you're surrounded by a lot of cool things to do. So you could go up to Top of the Rock, then eat at one of the amazing restaurants in Rockefeller Center, and then go ice skating or roller skating, depending on the time of year. And that's a really nice pairing. You have One World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. One World Trade Center is my favorite. It's my favorite because it has tour guides. I love that it has tour guides. You can ask them questions. They give tours. They give presentations. It's also all enclosed, which a lot of people don't like, but I like it because it's climate controlled. It could be blizzarding. You're going to be warm and toasty. It's awesome. It can be really windy. You're still going to look great in your photos because your hair is not blowing around. So I love One World. Edge, to me, feels like you're flying. It has the highest outdoor observation deck. Technically, One World is higher, but Edge has the highest outdoor observation deck. And to me, it feels like you're flying if you're at Edge. Summit One Vanderbilt is the hottest, hippest, newest kid on the block. If your goal is to get Instagram photos, you want to go to Summit. That is the Instagrammable one because it has a room with silver balls and a room with mirrors. Yeah. But I would probably say a lot of people are super happy with Top of the Rock as the first choice. And then if you want history, One World.
I feel like you named all the ones. I think because of the hate mail you're going to get from Famiglia Pizza and the other ones, now you've listed on all the observation decks. No one's losing out. What about a museum? Which museum should I visit?
Tenement Museum.
Yeah. Your personal favorite. Over the Met, over the MoMA, over the Natural History Museum.
You cannot get what the Tenement Museum offers anyplace else. You can only go into the Tenement Museum with a tour. It's actually an old tenement building.
Yeah.
You walk in, you learn about the people who actually lived in that tenement building. The tour guides are engaging. Some of them are very interactive in terms of tours. I love the Tenement Museum. It's the only museum I've ever been a member of. Now, if you're just I don't care about immigration, I want an art museum. The Met. I think it's so big that you could spend just 10 seconds looking at every single work of art inside that museum. And if you were there from open to close, it would take you 37 weeks to see everything in the Met. So, go see the Temple of Dendor at the Met and American Museum of Natural History. They just opened up the Gilder Center, which is really cool. It's a portion of the American Museum of Natural History. There's a butterfly vivarium. Butterflies land on you. Fabulous.
Living the dream. Yeah.
They have a Titanosaur. The Titanosaur is so big, and apparently it's a baby. But I tried to just do a pan with my phone. It took me 12 seconds to do the pan with my phone to get the entire dinosaur in it. So
the baby.
The baby. It was a baby. I was like, oh my goodness, the room doesn't fit it. The dinosaur, the Titanosaur's head is out of the room.
Wow.
So that has a definite wow factor. I feel like especially if you're traveling with kids, the American Museum of Natural History is like that's a hole in one.
That's a whole one. Okay. I feel like we did cover a lot of the landmarks in the first tour that we took on the first day, but if I can just get a quick list of landmarks that you should go to and the ones that are tourist traps.
I don't think any of them are tourist traps, to be honest. Okay. I feel very strongly about this because the reason why they're touristy is because they're awesome. I think that there is a reason to visit all of them, and there's also a reason to choose to do other things. Yeah. I think you have to see the Statue of Liberty. You don't necessarily have to take the boat and get off of the boat at Statue of Liberty, but you have to at least stand at Battery Park and see the Statue of Liberty. I love taking the boat cruises that go by it. You can see the Statue of Liberty for free if you take the Staten Island ferry. So you have to see the Statue of Liberty. I think if you do want to get off at the islands, it's really Ellis Island that like you want to save time for Ellis Island because that has that immigration history that I'm obsessed with. Central Park, you have to see Central Park. My favorite walk through Central Park, you enter at 72nd Street and Central Park West, and you walk across and you get to 5th Avenue and 76th Street. That you're going to see Bethesda Terrace. That's where like every movie was filmed ever. You're going to see Strawberry Fields. You're going to see the Alice in Wonderland statue. Grand Central Terminal. I feel like a lot of people don't think that they want to go to Grand Central Terminal, but when they get there, they realize that they really wanted to go to Grand Central Terminal. 9/11 Memorial, at least to pay your respects at the reflecting pool. I think that the museum's very intense, so you have to be like prepared to go into the museum. But I think that paying your respects at the reflecting pool, it's an important part of New York history. It's an important part of American history and world history. Rockefeller Center. Mm-hmm. I think that you just need to walk through it. It's, if nothing else, I really like the energy of Rockefeller Center. I really like walking down 5th Avenue. I know the shopping is really expensive. You don't have to buy anything, but a lot of just the buildings are impressive. Just to go into the Saks 5th Avenue on 5th Avenue is impressive. And the House of Cartier used to be a single family home, and just to be like, whoa, one person lived here. So walking down 5th Avenue, that's another big one. I personally love shopping in Soho. I think that's my favorite neighborhood to go shopping in. I say go to my neighborhood in Harlem, see the Apollo. I feel like a lot of people forget about Harlem, and it's amazing. Lots of wonderful culture, lots of amazing restaurants there.
Amateur Nights at Apollo is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah. I've never seen it live, actually.
You have to.
No, I'm a bad Harlemite. Trying to think.
I think that's a great list. I mean, if you think of anything, you can always email me.
Yeah. Oh, and
AI will generate you saying it. Don't worry.
Sit and people watch in Washington Square Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pretty comprehensive list. I think we have most of the elements of the itinerary. One final thing I would check is, as with any place that gets a lot of tourists, there are a lot of scams that could exist in the city. What are some scams I should look out for? As Chad.
Yeah. Chad, if someone tries to hand you something, say no. That's essentially like, number one.
Rule number one.
Especially if they try to hand you a CD. My mission is to make sure that no one ever takes a CD from a guy handing them a CD. Oh my goodness. This big scam, the way that this works is there is someone who will hand you a CD. They will tell you the CD is free. They'll ask you, what's your name? You'll say, oh, my name is Chad. And then they'll sign it. They're like, to Chad from Man with a CD. And they give it to you. And then they say, that's going to be $40. Yeah. And you're like, you said it was free. And they're like, oh, but now it's signed. And it ends up like getting really, really unpleasant. Sometimes they even call the police over and insist that you fork over that money. So it just say no. And the truth is that if you are somebody in the music industry trying to make it, you are not handing out CDs to random people in Times Square. You are like putting that on like MP3s, digital, like trying to target people in the industry. The biggest scam, those CD guys. Same thing with, I call them faux monks. They're not real monks. If you ask them what their temple is, they cannot tell you the temple. They will hand you like a token. You'll take the token. Sometimes it's a bracelet. They'll then ask you for a quote unquote donation. So say no to that. It's not necessarily a scam, but the people who dress up as the characters in Times Square, they will want a tip from you if you pose with them. So I say, just if someone approaches you and hands you something or is like, take a photo with me, say no.
A lot of scams to avoid. I think we've got the complete itinerary. Have I missed out anything? What do you think?
I guess the only thing would be like if you wanted to explore another borough.
Yeah.
If you wanted to like maybe venture outside of Manhattan. I always do like Brooklyn, going to like you can walk over the Brooklyn Bridge or the Williamsburg Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge, explore a little bit of Dumbo or Williamsburg. In the summertime, you could head out to Coney Island if you're more of a thrill seeker. They have a couple roller coasters out there. They have beaches. They have really good pizza, really good food in Brooklyn in general. In Queens, there's the Museum of the Moving Image, which is really, really wonderful. There's a lot of street art as well in both Queens and Brooklyn. That's another one where I would actually recommend that you take a tour.
Bushwick.
I think,
I actually ended up taking a tour of Brooklyn to go to Bushwick. It was such an experience.
Which company did you use?
It was an Airbnb experience.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. So it was like a person who stays in Brooklyn and they took us to Bushwick. And I never knew like you could have a museum of street art. Like the entire neighborhood is a museum of sorts. Such a fascinating spot.
And it's always changing.
Yeah.
Like definitely every year they have the Bushwick block party, I believe they call it, where they like repaint a lot of the walls. But even throughout the year, the walls get repainted. So you can go out there like multiple times a year and get a totally different experience.
Yeah. And because she keeps visiting it, she was just giving us like the history behind every mural, because she's like, okay, this is what it was 2 weeks ago. And now someone's coming to build on top of it. So you can see like the layers. You can kind of see the evolution of it. I thought it was fascinating. We have the ultimate itinerary for New York City. I think that's an excellent performance as a consultant. What a fantastic itinerary. And I can't wait to actually check out a lot of these places myself as well. So that's a great list.